Welcome to BTS, Behind the Scenes, the Highs and Lows of a Life Doula, the podcast episode where we pull back the curtain on the often unseen journey of life doulas. I'm Charity Marohombsar, your host and fellow traveler on this path of powerful transformation, connection, and personal growth. As a life doula, I have the privilege of walking alongside the individuals through some of their most significant life transitions, from moments of profound joy to times of deep struggle. Each episode, we dive into the heart of experiences, sharing the challenges I face, the fulfillment I find, and the lessons learned along the way. Together, we'll answer your burning questions and explore the realities behind this rewarding yet very emotionally challenging profession. Whether you're curious about my personal journey or looking for insights into the doula's role, or seeking inspiration as you navigate your own path, you're in the right place. So grab a comfortable seat, open your heart, and let's embark on this honest and relatable adventure together. Because in a world of life doula, it's not just about helping others, it's about growing together, one question at a time.
What led you to become a life doula?
My own cancer journey led me to become a life doula. Of course, at the time, I didn't know what I really wanted. I just knew there were gaps that I've seen in the way patients were cared for. And you've heard me say this many times over. I really believe that cancer patients or people living with cancer, even survivors, will heal better if they are managed holistically. A more patient-centric way of taking care of cancer patients. Not just making sure the tumor is dissolved, but also making sure that the mental, emotional, and spiritual being is cared for. That's really how I was led to this journey. I saw a gap and I looked around. There's hardly anyone addressing it. And I'm not one to wait for things to happen. So I just said to myself, I'll step in. I studied, and here I am.
You offer three services: cancer coach, grief coach, and end of life doula. Did you plan to offer all these services, and what is the story behind this?
Life doula is really, if you can say from a brand perspective, is really the category. And the subcategories would be cancer coach, grief coach, and end of life. I did not plan for this to happen. It was really driven more of need and I would say discernment. So I first studied to become a cancer coach, a life coach, and a cancer coach. Separate skill sets altogether. And then for some reason, I was being led to become an end-of-life doula, which I had zero knowledge and understanding until, when I said, okay, I will explore doing this, I realized that there was a whole world of end-of-life doulas in the UK, in the US. So I sought and studied and sought certification. So cancer coach, cancer coach, end of life doula. And 2021, every week I was losing patients. So I was really grieving hard to the point that I was immobilized by my grief. That's when I studied grief and I learned from the best, David Kessler, and I realized it wasn't just for me. It was also for the people that I was taking care of. There is grief in the cancer space. There's grief when you lost someone. So in this order, cancer coach, end of life doula, grief coach. And I just realized the three of this is something that's so much needed in the space where I serve. So that's kind of like the background of how I got into offering these three services.
What are the common issues you run into when you deal with clients?
I think the most challenging issue first is acceptance. Acceptance of the journey, like, you know, why I'm only 32 years old, I'm dealing with cancer. So that's one. And number two is anxiety and fear. I don't want to disassociate one from the other because it normally happens together all the time. These are the three things that's always in the space, and it's not a one-time thing, you know. You process it with patients and clients, and this is something that happens in their space for as long as they're journeying with cancer and even beyond. So this continues to be, I think, one of the challenges both for the patients and for coaches like me.
How do you balance your personal life with the emotional demands of your work?
Balance. I wish that I have that balance. Over time, I've learned that you hardly can achieve that balance. You can only do trade offs. Like on months where there's just so much to do, I try to carve time to be able to take care of myself. But when there are weeks where work is a bit slow, that's when I pour in on myself. So it's very hard to achieve that balance, but I try to like just have trade-offs on certain weeks or days. And right now, my life looks like this. Me, my family, my community, Better Days Wellbeing Center, and all the other clients that I work with, and the medical professionals I deal with. So, my daughter once said she has accepted the fact that my life is not just for them, it's also for the community that I serve. So, it's an everyday struggle balancing things in my life.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about what a life doula does?
I have been doing this for 8 years, but a lot of people do not know yet what a life doula is. So the biggest misconception is, am I a doctor? Are you a doctor? So a lot of people call me doctor. I'm not a doctor. My friend is, who's a medical oncologist. They also think that because I'm working in the cancer space, I provide funds for medical treatment. So these are two major misconceptions. I do not provide funds. I tap people to help. But really, my role is to be able to help in a non-medical way by addressing the mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being of a person.
You have so many tools in your belt. Do you still experience struggles and limiting beliefs like maybe imposter syndrome? And what do you do when these things show up in your space?
I definitely have limiting beliefs, many times imposter syndrome. What do I do? A coach needs a coach, like a doctor needs another doctor. So I make sure that I have several coaches that also helps me process what I do, process my struggles. So I tap into other coaches' resources because it's so easy to spiral down when you're doing the thing that I do, the work that I do, dealing with sick people, people who are dying, or people who are very sad. My teacher, David Kessler, said it's okay to give compassion versus empathy because we don't get sucked in the pain of other people when we look at things from the lens of compassion. So I have my grief coach, I have my life coach to help me process all these things.
You are now on your 8th year as a life doula. What emotions still get you triggered by the space you're in?
The fear of recurrence is always in my space because around 60% of the people I hold space for are cancer survivors who experience recurrence, very grave or rare type of cancer diseases. You see, all of this I fear so much. But instead of running away, my work allows me to run towards the things that I fear the most. So, am I scared of death? Every now and then, it gets to me. I'm a human being. So, I guess it's important for me to acknowledge these things and be realistic that it will always be in my space. Like what everyone says, it's really part of the job. It's the nature of the beast. And instead of really running away from it, I learned to live with it. I learned to put it at the foot of the cross every time I get fearful or I get paranoid. These are still very real feelings or very real emotions that stays in my space for a long time. Like recently I lost two of people I truly care about, and I pause. I stop and acknowledge it, and I continue with what I do. It's not easy, but it's doable.
What self care practices do you incorporate to manage stress and recharge?
I'm a believer that physiology affects psychology. When you move, your emotion shift or your mental disposition shift. So, a lot of walking while doing praying and meditation. That's part of my morning routine on top of sessions with my cancer specialist coach and a lot of reading or in terms of the topics that I need to know about. So these are the self-care routines that I do. It's almost non-negotiable.
How do you handle situations when you feel overwhelmed or out of your depth?
I shout. My daughter drives around the village and we find a place where I can shout, release, or sometimes a really hard workout, walking a lot. And of late, I've learned to just write about it, journal. And of course, talk therapy still applies to coaches like me. As I said in the earlier question, I have several other coaches that helps me process what I go through. But overwhelm is surely in the space very, very often.
What have you learned about yourself through your work with clients and patients?
That I really, really love people. I love getting to know them, being able to help them, and really going in depth into the kind of person that they are. I think that's what I have learned. I've done other things in the past, but I think the common thread is that I genuinely love being around people. But I always say I'm an introvert, but one on one discussions are really, really memorable for me.
What keeps you going and passionate about your work after facing setbacks?
What keeps me going? I mean, the analogy is getting back on the saddle. When things happen, I feel like I get thrown off the horse and I'll give myself a couple of days and I go back to the saddle. What prompts me to go back and really get passionate again is the very reason why I do this work. People, families, loved ones that I want to be able to journey with. That's what really keeps me passionate. And I really have the appetite to hold space and help people.
Last but not the least, what makes a life doula worth all the lows of what you do?
I think I have more lows and than highs. But I think what makes it truly worth it is knowing that I'm able to make someone else's moment a little better. You know, that very small dent that you create in someone else's life. And again, what makes it worth it is not so much the validation or the affirmation, but that somehow I was able to help ease someone else's pain or ease the mind of someone. I'm not sure if it's Simon Sinek, but someone said it only takes 8 minutes to make someone really feel better. I mean, give them that full 8 minutes, listen to them and listen deeply. Even if you don't say anything, you that 8 minutes is powerful. And I give 90 minutes on a Zoom call or 2 hours on a face to face to my patients. And that joy that they are better when they first open the Zoom room is what makes all of this worthwhile, because everything else is out of my hands. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Behind the Scenes, the highs and lows of a life doula. I hope today's discussion offered you insight into the unique journey of a life doula and illuminated some of the profound moments we experience in both highs and lows of this work. If you found value in our conversation, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review or a comment. Your support helps others discover our community and encourages us to continue sharing these important stories. I'd love to hear from you. If you have questions or topics you'd like us to tackle in the future, feel free to reach out on our social media, lifedoula.ph, or on this channel. Remember, we're all in this together, and your stories matter because you matter. Until next time, take a moment to reflect on your own journey and the connections you're cultivating in your life. Keep shining, stay curious, and embrace each experience as a step toward growth. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode.